Could it be? Could it be? It is out of here!
And it's a no-hitter! Unbelievable! Ruiz and Halladay embrace!
World champion!
It is bedlam at the bank as Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top!
We're talking about the Lions here.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Specific Jawns, a Phillies podcast. Got a very special episode for you guys this week. I am live on location from a dungeon. I am in the middle of a dungeon. More on that in a little bit. Let me introduce first my co-hosts. You see him every week. That's Mike Sambuco, and the debut, the Specific Jawns debut of our good friend known simply as Bubba.
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. This is exciting for me. I am back in New Jersey. If we had any sort of forethought, we would all be in the same room right now. Instead, we are sitting apart. I am over my brother's house where my nieces just painted my nails. 42
Nice.
years
I was gonna
old.
ask about that. That looks like, how old is she? Because that looks like somebody can paint between the lines at this point in their life.
It's pretty good, right? There's two of them, and 10 and 7. Is that right? Look at that.
Not
Just checked
bad.
with my brother off screen. 10 and 7 years old. They did a hell of a job. So thank you to them. And we are recording from the boiler room of my brother's new house, beautiful house. So thank you to him for the studio space. Gentlemen, how we doing today? How we feeling before we get into all this?
Not too bad. Weather's starting to turn around in Philly here. We just had one of our coldest and wettest winters in the past, decade probably. It was a pretty nice day today. Got out, walked around. Phillies, there's some reason for optimism there. So I'm trying to look on the positive here, Days getting longer, baseball coming back. So not bad.
Hey, I'm excited. This time next week, I'll be down in Houston for the World Baseball Classic, so I can feel the baseball. It's within reach.
I love that. I'm jealous. I wish I was going. I thought there was a shot, but you're going to have to hold it down for the Johns podcast. Enjoy that down there. Are you getting Scooble's only start? Are you seeing U.S. versus Great Britain?
So we are seeing U.S.-Mexico and U.S.-Italy, so we're probably going to miss Skeens and Scooble, unfortunately. We'll get
What?
Logan Webb at least.
You might get Aaron Nola on Team Italy.
Well, we'll definitely get... We'll get... Oh, who will we get? We'll get Dante Nori.
Dante Nori, absolutely. Phillies legend Dante Nori. Before we get started with this thing, I got to say, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, all of that stuff. Leave a comment, print out the thumbnail, and post it on your community bulletin board. Whatever you got to do. I don't know how any of this shit works, but we want the numbers to go up. So please help us make that happen. Without further ado, let's get into things. We got a lot on the docket today, including we're going to end the show with numbers 20 through 16 in our rundown of the 25 best Phillies of this century thus far. But let's start with at least one guy who's going to be on that list for sure, Bryce Harper, where we always start. Everything inevitably comes back to Bryce, and in this case, it is an event from 7 years ago that's in question. It made the rounds this week. It was a little bit of a TMZ-style gossip. Jean Segura went on a podcast with a Spanish name that I will butcher, so I won't even try. But he basically relayed an anecdote about the 2019 season when Bryce Harper, fresh off of signing his $330 million contract, got upset with Jean Segura for talking too loudly on FaceTime with Carlos Santana and some of the other Dominican players on Cleveland. The reason I bring it up, because I find it interesting, privately in our group chat and in the first couple episodes here, there's always a lot of, kind of speculation that the Phillies might not have a clubhouse leader. They might not have somebody who is willing to speak up. And certainly a few of our friends have singled out Bryce Harper as not being that guy, not being the vocal guy, not standing up and for the rest of the clubhouse and having any sort of conviction there. Not that this might necessarily even apply as that. But let me ask you this. What was your perception of Bryce Harper, the clubhouse leader, before you heard this story, and what is your perception after? Has anything changed for you?
I mean, nothing's changed. I mean, this is from 2019, presumably. after Harper signed that $330 million deal. Clearly wasn't a big enough problem where they had to find a trade suitor to take Jean. Like, Jean wanted to be a Philly and was a great Philly for the next 4 years. We won the pennant with Jean. We won the pennant with Bryce. Jean wanted to come back after that season too. We just didn't have the fit. I don't think it was. I think this is much ado about nothing more than anything.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. We agree with that too. I mean, the way I've looked at it is when I'm on SEPTA public transit and someone's listening to music, blasting it through their phone, do I want to tell them to shut the fuck up? Yes, I do. So if Bryce Harper's on the bus and yells at someone to shut the fuck up because they're doing that, I'm standing up and clapping for Bryce. Like, I love that. That's great. Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm glad he did it. I don't think I think it's getting overblown. I don't think it really was that big of an issue. That's what you kind of need sometimes. Bryce can be a bit blunt. That's kind of his style. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I to be really clear, I don't feel like this is a major story. I don't feel like it was, I'm not saying this is like a Castellanos thing where it's like, was there friction in the clubhouse? That's not what I'm getting at. I guess what I'm getting at is there's a lot of assumptions being made from Phillies fans as to what goes on behind closed doors in that clubhouse. And I've heard people say authoritatively that this team doesn't have anybody who is going to speak up about anything. And I think if nothing else, this is just another indication that is all speculative. What we can evaluate is what we see on the field, but when you see somebody talking about, well, this is what happens in the clubhouse and this is what the guys' personalities are like, we don't necessarily know. This happened 7 years ago, and it's just kind of coming out now, and it's not that big of a deal, but I think it could be representative of a clubhouse that maybe has been mischaracterized a little bit. Is that fair?
I think there's a lot that we just don't know about in terms of what goes on in the clubhouse. I mean, there's a reason why we didn't find out about the Castellanos bringing a beer out to the dugout until the day he got released. I mean, they keep those things under wraps if it's going to bring any sort of negative spotlight to the team or the franchise.
Yeah, I agree, and I think detractors would also take this as an opportunity to be like, maybe we need more of Jean Segura types in the clubhouse and a little bit less. So I think it's kind of a situation where you're like damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you're Harper, people's perceptions are going to be what they're going to be. But I just think it's worth noting that we now have a story on the record of Bryce Harper stepping to a teammate. Whether it was justified or not, I'll leave that up to the viewer of this podcast to decide. That your mileage may vary on that one. But we now have that story on record, so no more of this everybody in the clubhouse is quiet, nobody speaks their mind kind of thing. At least when it comes to loud FaceTime calls, at least one person definitely does. Let's move on to more current news, and that is Justin Crawford. We are way too early into the spring to draw anything from any numbers. That being said, let's do exactly that. Justin Crawford has been killing the ball so far, hitting over 300 before today, batting in the leadoff spot quite a bit, which I find pretty interesting, starting against lefties. The story before the season is that this is our starting center fielder. We are going to go with him. And I'll admit I was a little bit skeptical that they would actually go through with that. But it appears as though it's all systems go on Justin Crawford, and on opening day, he will be the center fielder. Bubba, have you seen him play this spring? What are your thoughts on Crawford so far?
I mean, that first at-bat, 390-foot double off the wall was fantastic. Based on that WIP, yeah, he's going to be the MVP of baseball this year. Realistically, I would love for him to continue driving the ball. That's really one of the big things I think that limits his ceiling. He's got the speed. He can play defense. It's just and he can hit for average, but can he actually drive the ball? So this is like a great sign. It's exactly what you want to see out of a young, promising center fielder like this. So it's very I'm positive about it. I'm feeling good, but I don't want to get carried away from it because we've seen Johan Rojas hit the ball well once or twice too, and then he has completely fallen off a cliff. So, I mean, it's tough to say. I do have faith in him more than Rojas, and I think he has a good chance to. He's not going to bat lead off, obviously, but I like that they're Topper's giving him those chances. He'll be a bottom of the lineup guy, but maybe he's batting 9, so then this really is some prep for him to help turn the lineup around.
Whether it's in the field or at the plate, he's given us no reason for concern yet. I mean, it's still very early. It's still spring training. Let's see what happens when the lights get bright in the regular season, but I don't think you can come away with any other feeling than optimism coming out of Justin Crawford's spring training so far.
Mike, you're the resident prospect expert here on the podcast. I think it's safe to say that you pay more attention to these guys and have seen more of Justin Crawford than the rest of us. My early assessment is I am most excited about the bat-to-ball skills and the speed. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a guy that I feel like has 50 stolen base potential. I think Turner did early in his career, but I wouldn't say he's a threat for that sort of thing now. Probably back to the Rollins days, and there were a couple of Victorino years in there. Give me an over-under for what you think is a reasonable expectation for stolen bases for Justin Crawford in his rookie season.
I think a lot of that really does depend on where he is in the lineup. I think if he's batting 9th and coming into whether it's some combination of Turner or Schwarber, Harper, Turner, Schwarber, whatever it is, that he's not going to be expected to steal many bags because you don't want to open up a base for one of those guys. So I don't know if he's going to have a big steal number in his rookie season if he's batting 9th, but I mean, I would set the over-under in the 20s. I don't think it's unrealistic to get to that number or higher, but I also don't want to put too much pressure on, nor does the rest of the team. And I think they're going to let him play, but they're not going to give him the green light day one either.
Yeah, my initial number that popped into my head was 22 and a half. Same ballpark as Mike. I think he's got potential to do a lot better, but yeah, he's still got to prove that he can get on base consistently in major leagues. And as Mike points out, yeah, you don't want to open up those bases and just let so they can just walk Schwarber every time. So yeah, I like his speed a lot, and there was a great article saying how he's been working his ass off on bunting, and he looks like he really enjoys bunting, and we have been missing that for a long time. It might not, like Juan Pierre might be the last great bunter the Phillies have had.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he really cares and understands that this is an important part of his game that he really is going to take seriously. Whereas we've all been asking Rojas to take bunting seriously, and he doesn't. He just wants to swing, and so I'm very happy to see that from Crawford. I hope that can turn into something. If we can get him on base, that's going to be produce some runs for the rest of our lineup.
After several months of what I would call a discontented fan base, everything from the Orion Kerkering error to running it back essentially while losing Suarez and not making a lot of changes and getting the fan base really riled up with the whole Bo Bichette thing. If Justin Crawford comes out on opening day and executes a sacrifice bunt and a hit and run, this city will be on fire. There is nothing that I think they want more than some good old-fashioned small ball, and man, if we could deliver that and just get some chaos on the base paths, I'm all for him running. I said this a couple episodes ago, even if he's batting ahead of those guys, because to me, the whole point of having a gauntlet of those three guys is okay, we open up a base and you walk, Schwarber, you got to pitch to Turner or vice versa, or then, now you have two guys on base for Harper and Schwarber. I think that should be kind of ultimately the goal. But I think that Rob will put the reins on him for the reasons you guys listed. I'm excited to see him, though. I feel like sometimes guys who can just really fucking run are a lot of fun to watch, and it's kind of been a minute there.
That's been probably my biggest source of optimism has been his defense more than anything, just because you didn't know what you're going to see out of him in center field, and it looks like he's really put in the work. There was an article about the work he did with Eric Young, and it seems to have been paying off so far, just based on the few innings that we've been able to see of him in center field. But he's getting good jumps on balls, he's getting good reads, and he's making the plays look easy. So that's a great sign. Obviously, we have many more innings to play in spring before we even get to the start of the regular season. But again, just like his performance with the bat, he's been doing everything he needs to do so far in spring training.
Yeah. Yeah, the early returns on the defense have been better than I expected, because I was going on what you said a little bit, which is ideally I think he slots in more as a corner outfielder, probably left.
He's more natural there. He definitely needs the reports out prior to spring training was that he needs work in center.
Yeah.
So,
well, he's getting
looks like he's getting it.
He's getting it, and it's coming along. And sometimes you throw them into the deep end of the pool and just kind of hope that they figure out how to swim, because Lord knows we don't have any other options out there. For better or worse, there's no Cody Bellinger walking through that door. There's no Harrison Bader. It's Justin Crawford's job to lose, and early returns are looking pretty good. So fingers crossed on that one. I also wanted to ask you guys about a few other people who are either excelling or really struggling early in the spring. Of course, the caveat is we're so early, and Rob really rolls his guys out slowly. So we're talking about less than 20 plate appearances for each of these guys. But I wanted to throw a few names at you. Let's start with the positive ones. Brian De La Cruz, an outfielder with major league experience. I think he has about 1,500 plate appearances in the bigs. He played for the Marlins for a little bit. Early on, he's posted an 857 OPS in the outfield. Garrett Stubbs, who I think everybody kind of became accustomed to as the backup catcher for several years. And then I think last year it just seemed like it was Marchand's job to lose. And Stubbs, frankly, I'm surprised that he ended up back on the roster. I really thought that he would have a different opportunity elsewhere. I think probably comes in as a clear third string, but he's got an 879 OPS. And then Pedro Leon, who admittedly I don't know a whole lot about, made his debut with the Astros, I believe last year, went 2 for 20, and that's the extent of his major league career. He's hitting 308 early. He's a right fielder. We've talked about the lack of outfield depth on this program. Do any of these guys stick out to you as somebody who has a realistic shot of making the opening day roster?
I would say that Brian De La Cruz has a really good shot of making the opening day roster and filling that platoon slot with Marsh in left field if he continues that power streak that he had in the Winter League where he won MVP. Based on how Otto Kemp is performing, it wouldn't surprise me if De La Cruz is the winner of that position battle, and Kemp can be sent down via options, so you don't have to risk losing him like you would with some of the other guys on the roster that don't have options. So I think there's some upside with De La Cruz because of the power. Would love to see him make the team because that means he's continued to make strides with the bat coming off of the hot winter that he had.
Yeah, I'm kind of buying De La Cruz the most too, although I'm hoping more Otto Kemp wins out that battle. I know he's not playing well right now, but it's still very early in spring. I think I'd rather see Kemp than De La Cruz. De La Cruz I think is okay. I'd be happy to have him as extra outfield depth. But I think I like Otto Kemp more, and I think I'd like to see, I think he'll turn it around. He showed us some good flashes last year, so I don't want to give up on him. And the one thing about Stubbs is that I think can't be denied is how much of a vibes guy he is. He really does a lot for the clubhouse, I think, and I think that's a crucial role that gets undervalued sometimes. If he can keep up this kind of hitting that he's keeping with, yeah, he's definitely going to give Marchand a run for the money again, his money, and I think the Phillies would be stupid not to consider bringing him back. But it's up to him. He's got to keep playing hot and prove he's just not there to make everyone laugh and keep them happy.
I will say, just the way the contracts are structured, Marchand has the leg up because he would have to go through waivers if they tried to send him back to the minors. There's no chance that they do that because they need the catching depth. Stubbs can go down because of the split contract that he signed. So I'd really be shocked if Marchand is the one that doesn't make the club at the end of the spring training.
Yeah, it seems like barring an injury, Marchand's going to have that regardless. I like to see Garrett Stubbs succeed. He's it's funny how quickly our perception of vibes guys changes based on whether or not they're winning or losing. I mean, in 2022, the keys to our run were, Dancing on My Own and a Spotify playlist. And everybody was acting like Stubbs was like an instrumental part of, of this team. And with every passing year, more losses, it just became like, oh, Stubbs is posting his Spotify list again. Who cares? Go out there and win some games, you bum. So I like Stubbs. I think he's good organizational depth. And even if you got to park him at AAA, and then, if you need somebody middle of the season, certainly as far as like quadruple A, third string catchers go, you could do a lot worse than Garrett Stubbs. Speaking of Otto Kemp, let's get to the guys who are struggling very early on. Otto Kemp, I have at the top of that list, hitting 154. He's getting some of the most plate appearances because I think they really want him to succeed. There's been a lot of talk from inside the organization. A lot of people are very high on Otto Kemp. His AAA numbers were outstanding. He has defensive versatility. He's going to be a big part of this team regardless. So for the purpose of this question, I'm not even asking, will he not? I think he's got to make the roster somewhere, but hitting 154 so far. Dylan Moore, who is an intriguing name, formerly of the Mariners, that also offers a little bit of positional versatility, isn't really doing anything yet, 450 OPS. And then our friend Johan Rojas, friend of the show, 311 OPS thus far in the spring, going into today. He will be leaving the team to join the Dominican Republic for the World Baseball Classic, which is, I don't know, kind of wild that he made that roster. But that being said, those three names, Otto Kemp, Dylan Moore, Johan Rojas, how are we feeling about those guys? Are any of them in danger of being cut from the team before the end of the spring?
Yeah, like I said, I'm a fan of Otto Kemp. I definitely would like to see him keep getting chances. I think he has the most potential out of anyone we're listing here. Johan Rojas, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes and has a fantastic World Baseball Classic and then comes to the Phillies and just continues to stink it up, really. I mean, look, he's a great center fielder. He's fast as hell, but he's not showing he can do anything with the bat, including bunting. His bunts just look like he is not interested in bunting at all. And when you can't really hit the ball at all, well, you got to get on base somehow. Bunting's got to be a thing you should be able to do. So as much as I would love for him to be on our team and see his speed all over the field, yeah, I'm not really sold on him. And Dylan Moore, I don't know too much about, but I mean, he didn't get a roster invite. He's a vet. He's got a 450 OPS right now. Not saying he can't turn things around, but I'm not really seeing anything that makes me think he should really stick around, but we'll see.
Dylan Moore and Johan Rojas are cut from the same cloth. They both can't hit, never could hit, but they're fantastic defenders. Dylan Moore has a little more positional flexibility and has the hardware. He won a Gold Glove a couple years ago, but I don't think you're ever going to see either of those two individuals hit for a full season in the majors, and both will likely start the season in AAA.
Yeah, I gotta say, I wanted to ride the Rojas train as long as possible. I think we have reached the end of that journey, for me personally, because there is just nothing there with the bat, and there is no versatility. If you are going to be in 2026... I'm not even going to say primarily a defensive player, exclusively a defensive player, you have to at least give the team the opportunity to get multiple guys off of their feet. If you're only really capable of playing the outfield, that's not extremely helpful. And, Edmundo Sosa, who I know they tried in the outfield last year, which one of the most bizarre experiments ever, because he only played a couple games. They said he's terrible, he can never be out there again. And in those 2 games, he did manage to rob a home run, which is pretty ridiculous.
Made the MLB top 100 plays of the season.
It was number 100 on the dot, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Marcelo Ozuna took one back, and then they were like, "We don't like the way you robbed that home run. You're an infielder again." So hell of a run out there for him. But yeah, I think that Dylan Moore makes the most sense. He also offers, in the event of an injury, more opportunities to fill holes. So, as you mentioned, he won the Gold Glove, I believe, just as a utility player, which they started giving out a few years back. Guys like that are incredibly useful, and I hope that he. Do you know his contract status? Are we able to start him in AAA, or can he?
Yeah,
Request?
it's kind of like the similar type of split contract that Stubbs got. So opportunity to send him down, but also I think it was over $3 million if he makes the big league roster. So it's not a a minimum contract if he does make the big league team.
I mean, frankly, what he brings to the team is worth $3 million, even if it is just the defense, as long as you're able to do it kind of at that many positions. And in my opinion, guys like that are extremely valuable. So I think we'll be seeing him on the roster at some point. I'm really holding out hope that these guys know what they're talking about with Kemp. I'm hearing so many things from inside camp where it's like they're very high on Kemp. And his numbers were obviously, really good in AAA. He has a little bit of versatility. He's not nearly as good defensively as Moore is, but he's at least adequate at a few different positions. I think they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed. And at a time when everybody is saying the same three names in the Phillies farm system, Kemp is kind of a forgotten guy where nobody is really excited about Kemp as far as the fan base goes, unless I'm missing something. This is my first time.
No, you're not wrong about that, and that's largely due to, I'd say, where in the draft those other individuals went. Painter, first round pick; Crawford, first round pick; Miller, first round pick. Those individuals have had the hype for years because of that, and they've performed. Kemp has kind of flown under the radar for a couple of years, and then last year he finally got his call up, performed adequately in the big leagues, and has the opportunity to make the roster again this year and potentially a bigger role as the right-handed hitter of a left field platoon. I think, though, like you talk about the versatility. That's big because you need those types of guys to fill out a roster. He doesn't really excel at any of those defensive positions, but he can at least play adequate infield or outfield.
Yeah. I think he also, we have to remember, got thrust into a bigger role than was even the plan for him last year. He came up and the playoffs rolled around, and Castellanos was being Castellanos, and then Bader got injured in game 2 of the division series, and then all of a sudden, Otto Kemp was kind of like. Well, no, Kemp was.
It was game 1, and then Kemp started game 2.
That's right, Kemp started game 2. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot was expected of him last year, and then he kind of had to, outkick his coverage a little bit, and for the most part, held his own. He certainly wasn't the biggest problem we had at any point last year. So, hopefully he can keep it going and improve upon that rookie season in year number 2. A couple more spring notes before we move on. Andrew Painter. Took the mound today against the Yankees, threw 2 perfect innings with a strikeout. I did not get to watch the game because it was either that or get my nails painted by my niece, and I made my choice, and I stand by it. Did you gentlemen see the game? Do you have any thoughts on Painter's outing today?
I missed, unfortunately, the first 2 innings when he pitched, but from what I heard, yeah, his velocity looked good. Maybe some of the command on the off-speed stuff wasn't quite hitting, but I mean, hey, he's still working his way back. I think seeing the velo up there back to his kind of pre-injury velocity is a great sign. So I think he's got a good chance, to be a good number 5 pitcher for us this year, which is what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I'd say just early on in the spring, 2 innings against, I think the majority of the hitters that he faced were all major leaguers. So I think it was 4 of the 6 were major leaguers, so it's not like he was just facing no names on the Yankees. Happy to see that he succeeded, but need more of that. It's too early to say, what we're going to see in the regular season. Even the strikeout that he threw kind of looked like it was right down the middle on a slider that hung up a little bit too long, and Better just swung through it.
Well, regardless, we're a week into spring training and we got to talk about something. So it's time to stake our entire reputations as baseball analysts on whether or not Andrew Painter is going to be great based off of 2 innings. So I appreciate you guys playing along on that one. And it sure seems like Painter is going to be counted on. We've talked the entire offseason about surely they know they need more pitching depth. Dave even said, what was it, a month ago at this point? 2 months ago? We need more starting pitching depth. We intend to use the trade market to get it. And I don't know when he intends to use that trade market because he has not followed up on that at all. It's like he forgot that he said it. Obviously, Max Scherzer is off the market now. He's back to Toronto. Word from inside the Phillies camp is they didn't have any interest in Scherzer anyway. And now I'm also hearing that the remaining top 2 pitchers are also not a fit, including Zach Littell, who I really liked. I thought he actually would have fit perfectly. So if they are really just going to ride this out as it stands, Painter is going to have to stay healthy and be productive, and hopefully no more of those hanging sliders.
It's either that or we get a full season of Taijuan Walker.
Unfortunately, isn't it both? I mean,
until Wheeler gets back, it is.
Yeah, I guess if they plan on going back to a 5-man rotation and everybody stays healthy, it's going to come down to Andrew Painter or Taijuan Walker for that 5th spot. And boy, that concerns me a lot. But I'm going to try to not be negative this episode. 2 perfect innings. Extrapolate that out. That's a perfect season. So fingers crossed. Let's see if we can get that. Last shout out of the spring, Bryson Stott hit a home run today. Coming into today, he was 4 for 6 with 5 walks. Stott is always a guy who works counts, has quality at bats, has not always had the numbers to show for it. I feel like a lot of times the quality of his at bat is better than the end result. So far this spring, the end result has been a lot better. It would seem on paper like Bryson Stott is a prime candidate for a breakout year. Before we end this part of the episode and get into our list of the top 25 Phillies of all time, I want to of this century. I want to close with the Bryson Stott conversation. How confident are you guys that he takes a leap forward in 2026?
I have some confidence in Bryson. He ended last season well. He's carrying it over for, even in a limited sample here in spring training. But I think he has a good chance to make this a big year for him. He keeps improving every year, in my opinion. Some people say, maybe he's not, I think he was he hurt? No, he lowered his hands. Is that what I think he did at some point? He lowered his hands in his stance, and then after that, boom, he started hitting again. So, he's just going through growing pains, but I think this could be a good year for him. He's got all the tools, I think, to be a really good player for us, and we kind of need him to kind of have a breakout year too, to be honest. We keep saying, we re-signed Schwarber, that's all we need, but we actually do need him or someone else to have a big year outside of the big 3.
Spring training overreaction, Bryson Stott, 2026 All-Star. Maybe he even starts All-Star games in Philly. We're going to bring out the full infield this year. No, I don't know if my expectations are that high, but I'm excited because I've been a Stott believer for a while, and it's been a bit of frustration year after year since his early, I think it was his second year where he led the team in WAR, when we had a slow start last year. And I think this is the year maybe he can put it all together and become that well-rounded, great defensive second baseman with some punch at the plate.
Yeah, I feel like he's, of the daycare guys, he has kind of flown under the radar the most. I feel like if we took their approval ratings, Stott would consistently be the highest. Bohm is obviously maddening because he is marketed as a cleanup hitter, which I don't think that he is. When he looks bad, he looks really bad. When he's bad, his attitude can be terrible. So I think that people are more, opinions are across the board on Bohm. And then you have Marsh, who you look at this guy and you're like, I see how big you are. You should not be trying to hit opposite field home runs and having 140 strikeouts. Having a Ryan Howard baseball savant page is not what I want out of Brandon Marsh. And then there's Stott, who on the one hand feels like a pretty big disappointment to me thus far because he came out so hot and just kind of plateaued very quickly and has not really, in my opinion, defensively, I think he has improved every single year. But offensively, I feel like he's been a little bit stagnant at times, but he does have those great at-bats. So on a team that is built on guys swinging at 2-0 sliders out of the zone, it is nice to have one guy who feels like he goes up there with a plan. When this team is going bad, I feel like a lot of times none of them have any idea. They get in the box and they're like, I should have thought about this before I got in the box. I don't know what I'm about to do right here. Stott always seems like he knows what he wants to do, even if he's not able to do it. So I'm hoping this is the year his talent catches up to his approach and he really puts some numbers up. Of all the guys, he's the one that I have the most faith in, and I would love to see that sort of paid off this season. So fingers crossed on that one, and hopefully 25 years from now we're doing this podcast and we're doing the top 50 Phillies of the century so far, and Bryson Stott is right up top. As it stands today, we're doing the top 25 of the century, and he is nowhere on the list. Spoiler alert, you won't be hearing his name today anymore. On the last episode, we ran through 25 through 21. There were some controversies there. Of course, Scott Rowland, to me, was the biggest controversy at 21. We got a couple more controversial ones this week, including a guy who's not on the list. And I debated bringing this up at the end, but we're going to bring it up today because he compares pretty favorably in a lot of people's minds to a guy that he ended up losing to by quite a bit here. Running down the list, number 20 this week, Ryan Madson. Philly for quite a while, 7.5, 8 years, and then had a very bizarre post-Phillies career, but his Phillies run was undeniably great. Number 19, Jim Thome. We talked about Scott Rowland's, short tenure in terms of this century and being a part of this list. Jim Thome, I mistakenly said last week, played 2.5 seasons with the Phillies. I forgot about the debacle that was 2012, so technically he played more. But really, he's on this list on the strength of 2 magical seasons and changing the aura around Phillies baseball. Number 18, Rhys Hoskins, a guy we've been talking a lot about recently, coming in one spot ahead of Thome for, I guess, the backup to Ryan Howard's spot on our theoretical team here. Number 17, Ranger Suarez, rest in peace. I miss him already. I will miss him every day. He's one of my favorites ever. And number 16, Pat Burrell, and the total scoring took a pretty big jump when you get from Suarez to Burrell. Burrell starts the run of, legitimate top 10, kind of guys. So that's the list for this week. 20 Madson, 19 Thome, 18 Hoskins, 17 Ranger Suarez, 16 Pat Burrell. Bubba, why don't you kick it off? Because you didn't get to talk about last week. Do any of those names jump out at you as being way too high or way too low?
No, I don't think so. I guess, I'm surprised Brad Lidge isn't on this list. That's really my main takeaway here. I had him ranked at 18 and Madson at 19. So when you look at the stats, they do favor Madson. He pitched longer. I think he had close almost to 9 WAR over in his career with the Phillies. And Lidge really just had 2008, but 2008, how can you ever forget about that? You can, the most iconic moment almost in Phillies history, him sliding onto his knees, Chooch coming to grab him. That's why, voting with my heart there when I put him at 18 and then Madson at 19. Madson's more of a, it's tough to deny him. He was a critical backbone for the Phillies for, they moved him from bullpen, or starter to bullpen and back, and he kept producing on that time. So, no, he wasn't the flashiest guy in the world, but he is, in terms of WAR, he is a top 4 reliever all time for the Phillies. So no disrespect here for Ryan Madson, but surprised at the disrespect for Brad Lidge.
Yeah, I'll say on the Madson front, I had Lidge ahead of Madson. Madson was actually an honorable mention for me, not on my top 25, but Madson was that bridge to Lidge and did have a longer Phillies tenure. He was, the definition of a failed starter turning into a good reliever. But he had one of the best changeups that you would see out of the bullpen, and it's kind of you don't see that very often. Devin Williams comes to mind right now, but he's that kind of guy. He did turn into a closer, was our closer in 2011. We definitely don't win in the World Series in 2008 without him, holding down the eighth inning. He did have some lowlights as a Philly too, not just outside his Phillies tenure. He gave up that home run against Uribe in the Giants series in 2010 that was the ultimate game-winning run in that eighth inning. Also did give up, technically had 2 blown saves in the 2008 World Series. One, I would say, is less his fault, but did let a home run up to Baldelli after the Jeff Jenkins double. But, great tenure as a Philly, just to me, not top 25.
The Lidge Madson thing is so interesting, and originally I was going to save the honorable mentions for the last episode, but you can't talk about Madson making the list without comparing him to Brad Lidge. I think those two names are linked forever in Phillies history, and this is a subjective exercise, right? Like we've talked about how do you value, years on the team and WAR and contribution versus, one legendary season, which is certainly what Lidge had. He was here for 4 years, but he had one epic year, one very good year, and then 2 kind of disasters in the, to round it out. How do you value that? And Lidge was the only guy that was named on all 4 of our ballots and still did not crack the top 25. He just missed out based on points. In the interest of full disclosure, because I think this is important, and the person who is responsible for this egregious misranking is not on the podcast today. Carl Bacuti randomly called in sick the day we had to talk about Ryan Madson and Brad Lidge. It's a little bit weird, right, guys? I had Madson 23, Lidge 25. Mike had Lidge 25, Madson not ranked. Bubba, as you said, you had Madson or Lidge 18, Madson 19. And then there was Carl, who had Madson 19 and Lidge 25. That was the biggest gap between the two. I don't know how you compare the two of them, but I feel like they almost have to be close. Because you could certainly make the argument that Brad Lidge's 2008 was worth more than Ryan Madson's entire Phillies tenure. I'm not making that argument, but you could. So to me, I would have liked to have seen justice for Brad Lidge. I would have liked to have seen him make the list, but was not to be.
Yeah, to me, having Brad Lidge off the list as a result of Mr. Carl's, let's just say, misranking, and then his, I think he was a little afraid of coming on this podcast today. Let's just be honest here. You think of anything amongst the 2008 World Series, and the first thing that comes to your mind is Brad Lidge closing it out. You think of anything in the 21st century about the Phillies, and you think of 2008 first, there's the link to Brad Lidge right there. He is a big part of this franchise. There's only been 2 World Series won, and he's won one of them.
And it's not just that moment. If he was a run-of-the-mill closer and he had that moment and that moment was etched in Phillies history, I could see, an argument to the contrary. He went 48 for 48 in saves that year, including the postseason, in a season where they barely won the East. They had to come from behind the last month to take over the Mets. He was 7 for 7 in the playoffs. So, yeah, it was that moment. It was the strikeout of Hinske. But there were a bunch of other moments along the way that if those don't exist, you might not be in that position to begin with. It feels like a miscarriage of justice to not have Brad Lidge on there. As far as the other names on this week's edition, the thing that jumps out at me as particularly interesting is the Hoskins versus Thome debate. For me, I would have thought that Tommy would, take this one over. But again, it's all in sort of how you value everything. Because Tommy, the longevity was not there. But boy, that 2003, I think anyone who was a Phillies fan back then remembers how special it felt when you got word that Tommy was signing here. I think everybody expected him to go back to Cleveland. The Phillies had not been a major player for a free agent in a long, long time. And that kind of signaled the beginning of a new era in Phillies baseball, even if it never worked out with Tommy exactly. And then you have Reese, who did get all the way to the World Series and had some incredible moments along the way. How did you guys personally stack these two up against each other?
Yeah, I'd say Tommy was one of the hardest names to place on this list. I had him at 16 overall, Hoskins at 17 overall. So right around where they ended up, just flipped compared to the overall ranking of 18 for Hoskins and 19 for Tommy. But the Tommy story starts with the signing that you mentioned. My family bought season tickets to the Sunday package in 2003 because of that signing. It brought excitement back to the Phillies, and for a roster and a team that really needed a spark, they needed a face of the franchise kind of guy, and he brought that. He put us back on the map as a big market team that really wanted to win now, and that really, and then he backed it up with 47 home runs, led the majors in home runs that year, had an All-Star season in 2004 right after that. Then it kind of turned. Like he got injured in 2005. Howard then wins Rookie of the Year, and we had to find him a home and send him to Chicago. But never felt like there was any bad blood after that. And the lines of communication were open for him to come back in 2012 after Howard tore his Achilles. So he was 41 at the time. We didn't have high expectations, but the door was open. So he'll always be a kind of a Phillies legend in a sense. Would have loved to see him have a longer Phillies career here, and then he would have been much higher on the list. But I think the impact that he had was really, he was the catalyst for everything that happened in the next 5 years after.
Yeah, well said, Mike. I mean, I think this plays into the whole theme that we're getting into with this top 25 and what we just discussed with Lidge and Madson. Tommy, really represented a lot to this franchise. Really kind of brought us back and started kick-started the franchises again. And then you have someone like Pat Burrell who played just for a longer period, and he was just a solid core bat for us for over a decade. He is also fourth all time in home runs in Phillies history with 251. So, no slouch himself, obviously, but did he have the peaks of, Tomy's 47 and 42 home run seasons? No. But he also produced for a longer time and won us a championship. So, in my mind, if you win a championship, I'm always going to give you a little bit of a boost. Tommy potentially maybe could have won us one, but, didn't. His time was cut short here. And then, Ryan Howard stepped in, so not the worst thing in the world. Now, Reese is a little bit of a blend of the both. He was so hot and cold. He hits, I forgot about this stat until, doing a little research for this, that he hit 17 home runs in his first 50 games. Unbelievable. That's just crazy. And it's funny I even forget that sometimes because I just think about that bat flip still to this day. That his home run and that bat flip are one of my favorite Phillies memories besides winning the World Series. That one really it was so electric and really felt like, okay, we're finally back again, And so for that, his stats, he struggled at other times and could go really cold, but then man, he produced some big moments for us. So it's tough. I had him above Tommy, but also behind Burrell. I think Burrell was a more consistent bat. Reese brought some great memories, and Tommy really laid the foundation for all of it.
Yeah, Burrell, a couple things I picked up on just from you talking there. Number one, I really feel like if your franchise has been around 150 years, Pat Burrell should not be fourth on your all-time home run list. That really highlights how sad a lot of those 150 years were. But that being said, I mean, he was a deeply flawed player in a lot of ways, but, you know, he was the hybrid of the two things. He did have the longevity, the consistency, and he won a World Series with us. And he had a big moment in that Game 5, coming out of, the rain delay. And then he comes out and, like, hits the double. One of the more bizarre ways you could come into an at-bat off of, like, 48 hours of, like, being cold. And he comes in, and that's the way he ends his Phillies career. And then he has the parade, and he is one of the most loved athletes in the city. And then 2 years later, he comes back with the Giants and tears our heart out en route to winning another World Series. And I guess fuck him. But overall, his run, I definitely see where he's going to kick off the next wave of guys with this thing. Hoskins, I don't really know how to grade. I think perhaps I have maybe an unintentional bias against him because I was living in Philly, or I was living in Jersey during the Tomey years. I went to a ton of games. And during the Hoskins run, I'm living in LA, so it's a little bit, I'm not maybe feeling the energy as much. I had Tomey ahead of him, by a few spots, but I'm not mad at it. I understand why people would have Hoskins ahead, and that's, kind of the point of this list. If you're watching this and you have some thoughts, sound off in the comments. Leave us some comments, good or bad. Even if you don't understand how baseball works, just do an emoji of a baseball. All that helps with the algorithm, I'm told. All I care about is the algorithm, guys. I'm just trying to please the algorithm gods. Please, help me do this so I can get a real studio and I don't have to record in the middle of a fucking basement anymore. All right, that is this week's episode. Bubba, thanks for jumping on and joining us this week. Mike, thanks as always for being here. Next week, we will be back to grill Carl on why he made such dumb choices and then left without defending them. Until next time, Mike Sambuco, Bubba, Pat Barger, Specific Jawns podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.